Hello Internet, in this video I'm going to be talking about why I believe you should paint a Space Marine even if you believe they kind of suck. Recently I painted one of the new Space Marines from my Dark Angels army from the Leviathan box set. Now usually I'm not the biggest fan of painting Space Marines, but my Dark Angels army holds a very special place in my heart. So every now and then I go back and add some cool new models. This time, however, I noticed a big difference in what I was painting and what I had painted previously, and it made me realise just how important it is to paint Space Marines. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To fully understand this, we're going to have to go back to November 2012 to visit a little Frankie. If you're anything like me, and I'm willing to bet that you are, then you probably remember the first time you discovered the world of miniature wargaming. For me, I clearly remember walking into a shop that was hidden down one of the side streets in my hometown centre that I had bizarrely never gone down before, and being struck by a sense of pure wonder. The bright yellow text with sharp points to the letters was unlike anything I had seen above a shop before, and so were the tiny worlds that lay within it. At the time, the first of the Hobbit movies was only a month away from release, and at the front of the shop was a breathtaking scene from the movie. And rather incredibly, the only photo that I could find of the shop as Games Workshop at its old location, not its new one, just so happens to have the Escape from Goblin Town box set in the window, which is really weird. On the first visit with my group of friends, I asked the incredibly enthusiastic store manager Matt a ton of questions about the painting process and the range of models they had on offer. Being the age I was, there was no way I could afford any of the beautiful boxes of plastic that I wanted, but Christmas was just around the corner and I knew for definite what I was going to be asking for. Myself and two friends decided we were going to take the plunge into this new hobby, and they were both a lot more interested in the worlds of Warhammer 40,000 than either Warhammer Fantasy or the Middle-earth strategy battle game, and as such I followed their lead. Not knowing what army I wanted to play, for Christmas I received the starter box set Dark Vengeance, including two forces. In one corner we had the Emperor's first chapter of Space Marine, the Dark Angels, and facing off against them were the fearsome Chaos Space Marines. The intro box set allowed me and my friends to play before we could each build a proper army, and introduced me to the world of miniature painting, from which I have not looked back since. Back then my Space Marines were painted with unthinned paints, obscuring the details, and may as well have been edge highlighted with a spray can. But it didn't matter, I was hooked. Any chance I got, I was in the Games Workshop store, browsing the shelves, dreaming of owning all that beautiful plastic, or sitting at one of the painting stations, shyly listening to what was going on around me, just happy to be amongst other people that thought this stuff was cool. Of course, at the time when I walked into that Games Workshop, I did not know what a big impact it would have on my life, and still does to this day. And if by some miracle you end up watching this video, Matt, I just want to say a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kindness, endless enthusiasm, and patience for all the kids that wandered into that shop. It's people like you that have crafted these really welcoming places for people to enter the hobby that has made this community one of the best to be a part of. So thank you. Over the years, my involvement in the hobby would slow down and almost disappear, with me picking up the odd pre-owned model for a fun painting project, which is exactly what started my Orc army. And for those of you wondering, I did eventually get the Hobbit starter set and found it was much easier to play, as my dad loves Tolkien, so I didn't need to organise seeing my friends for a few hours at a time. Instead, me and my dad were happy to play the odd game. Jump forward to 2020 and the world was told to stay indoors. Like many others, I had found myself wanting to fill this time with something creative, and since I had moved out, my parents had found all my old Warhammer models. So, braving the outside world, I went and picked up my old Space Marines, Orcs and Middle-earth miniatures. I started by repainting some of my old Space Marines, and quickly got the itch to paint something new. For the first time I was earning money where I could buy kind of whatever I wanted. This caused an explosion that has propelled me to where I am now, standing on around 6 armies with hundreds of models. If you are finding this video interesting at all, I would just like to say thank you and maybe ask you to consider pressing the like button. It really makes a difference to the video's performance and it allows me to know what types of videos my audience is finding interesting. Also, whilst you're down there, if you want to see more of my videos appearing in your subscription feed, consider subscribing. It is free after all. So why does all this matter? Well, since getting back into the hobby, I have really not painted many Marines. The reason for this is simply that my taste in models has changed. I now much prefer to paint organic subjects such as orcs, tyranids, or the servants of Neb. I also like being able to paint things in varying colours, rather than being tied to a strict scheme. With that in mind, how can I say that painting Space Marines is so important? I believe that the Space Marine is potentially the best way to show your painting knowledge in the least subjective way possible. The basic design of the Space Marine is made up of key shapes, like cylinders and spheres, that when painted demonstrate your understanding of volumes and shapes. The three recurring materials of armour, metals and leather show your ability to create textures when the sculpt may not explicitly present them. All the sharp edges that demand to be edge highlighted, paired with all the areas that want to be panel lined, really show off your ability to control your brush. Volumes, textures and brush control are the building blocks of a good paint job. Having a model that so clearly demonstrates these disciplines allows us to really assess how we are progressing. Do I still find painting Space Marines a bit boring? Personally, yes. However, when I was done with this model, I saw very clearly how much I had grown as a painter. This Dark Angel is miles ahead of what I had painted in the past, and going forward I will make sure to paint a fairly standard Marine every few years to see how far I have come as a painter. So why should you paint Space Marines? Simply put, I believe they are great models for self-assessment of our painting skills. You don't need to paint an army, just paint one every few years as a way of reflecting. By the way, for those of you who would potentially be interested in getting the channel logo on a t-shirt or mug, well, I have that and various other designs on my TeePublic store. And right now there is a sale on TeePublic for Black Friday, so if you're interested in getting anything, now would be the best time. There is a link in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.